Good morning. Today's date is January 23rd, 2009. My name is Tyrone Belanger. Today I will be conducting an oral history interview with Roger Chester Morris for the Veterans History Project in partnership with the Dalton Council on Aging. This interview is being held at the Dalton Community Television Studio in Dalton, Massachusetts. Before we get started with this interview, I would just like to mention that Roger had a stroke in 2006 and that I will be helping him with some of the questions or the answers with some of the questions if he cannot answer them. Thank you. Good morning, Roger.
Good morning, sir.
Would you please state your full name and spell your last name?
Roger Chester Morris. And this, is it?
You want to spell your last name? Can you spell your last name? That's okay.
No.
That's okay.
No.
Where do you presently live?
I'm not sure.
Melbourne Place
Yes,
in Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
right.
What is your date of birth and where were you born?
June 23rd. No, I haven't got it. I can't.
1920.
1920.
And do you remember where you were born?
No.
Richmond Hill, New York?
Right. Correct.
Did you grow up and go to school there?
Yes, I did.
It was Belrose School, right?
Well, Belrose a little later. Yeah.
And then you went to Jamaican High?
Jamaica
Jamaica
High.
High.
Yeah, Jamaica.
What was life like growing up during the Depression?
Oh, rough stuff. We had to transfer names from one family to the other, so the southern daughter had to go to different homes, and the mother and father had to go to them. We had to move the house and get out of there, get out of the home.
So you were all split up for a while.
Yep.
So that sort of made it tough for the family.
Yeah. It wasn't too easy in between. It was some space.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
We had one sister and myself, brother.
Do you remember what your dad did for a living?
He was he worked for a company.
It was a bank?
Yeah. And he worked for him.
Yeah. Was your father a veteran?
No.
Did you graduate from high school?
No. You graduate from high school? Yes.
You graduated from high school. What did you do after you finished high school?
Went to a different class, different grades, trying to get a job, and we lived in these two different messages until I got in.
Do you remember working for the General Motors Acceptance Corporation?
Yes.
You did that for a couple of years after high school.
Yeah.
And do you remember what year you graduated from high school?
No.
1938?
Yeah.
So you worked for a couple of years from 1938 to 1941.
Yeah.
Were you drafted or did you enlist in the Navy?
Enlisted.
Do you remember the story as to how you enlisted?
Do you remember what?
The story as to how you enlisted and what went on before you got into the service? Do you want me to read it? What you wrote down?
Yeah.
You were 21 years old on December 7th, 1941. A few of your friends and yourself were listening to the radio, to a ball game, I think it was.
Yeah.
And they interrupted the program to announced the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
Right.
So, of course, you wanted to join the service, and you wanted to go into the Navy.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, you wanted to get into the Navy.
Yes.
So you had a delay program, if I'm not mistaken, to get into the Navy.
Out of what?
A delay program. It took you a little while to get into the Navy.
Oh yeah. Just too measured. Too trouble. Too lovely.
Now, do you remember why you joined the Navy?
Why I joined the Navy? Because I liked it better than building.
You mentioned that you didn't want to be walking around an awful lot in the Army.
Right. Right.
How old are you? Do you remember how old you were when you joined the service?
No. 18.
21. You were 18 when you got out of high school.
Right. Right.
You were 21 when you joined the service. Do you remember the dates of your service? You did this before.
No.
You remember when you joined the military?
No.
Well, you joined it in February of 1942.
Good.
And you got out in October of 1945. You remember that?
What were 2 dates? Well, what?
You joined in 1942, and you got out in 1945.
Right.
Tell me where you were sent. Do you remember where you were sent to boot camp?
Sure, I remember, but I can't tell the dates. I can't think.
Well, the dates is when you went in, but you went to Newport.
All right.
You went to Quonset Point in Newport, Rhode Island.
Yep.
Can you describe some of your basic training or what it was like? And you mentioned, or when I wrote it or read it in the journal, that it was awful cold because you were living in Quonset huts.
Oh yes, yes, yeah.
You remember the stoves?
Yeah. That was uncover. It was very uncover, very hot. I mean, very cold.
Very cold, yeah. It was February and March.
Yeah.
Do you remember where you went after boot camp?
Went to noon camp. Went to learn to be a magician.
The electrician?
Electrician.
Yeah. I'm going to go back a minute because I forgot a couple of things. When you joined the military, what was life? Was it hard to adjust to the military life for you?
No, not really.
Okay. Do you remember how long boot camp training was? The basic training.
It worked longer than we expected because somebody was in effort. We had some whittlers, some Moneberry trouble.
Yeah. So it took you about 3 months for basic training.
Yeah.
12 weeks.
Yeah.
How did you feel when you graduated from boot camp and you were going to be sent to electrician's school? How did you feel?
I felt good and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean, it was a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
To finish that.
Yeah.
The boot camp. Did you get a furlough after you left boot camp? Do you remember?
Yeah.
You got to go home for a little while?
Yeah. I went away for about a week.
Do you remember how you felt when you came home from boot camp?
When I came home from boot camp?
Yeah, how did you feel?
I felt good and comfortable, yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned you were proud.
I was what?
You were proud
Oh, yeah.
being in the service,
With the uniform.
but you were also sad.
Also what?
You said you were also sad. Do you remember saying?
Oh, yeah, of course. Your family was all leaving and
You were leaving, going to leave your family again.
Yeah, yeah, a little almost crying, yeah.
Well, it had to be hard. Do you remember where you reported next after boot camp for your electronics training?
I can picture it, but I can't tell you the word.
You went to Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah,
You went to electronics school at the down in Michigan. Excuse me, yeah. After that, you were in school, let's see, for almost 4 months.
right.
Then you remember where you went after your schooling?
What's a Dicknish life? A long time waiting to get ready.
You mentioned you were shipped back went to Newport, Virginia, naval base.
Yeah,
And you had, it was an amphibious base,
right, right.
and you trained on LCTs. Now, do you remember what the LCT was?
Oh, yes. We've lived in them for a long time.
The landing craft tank, right?
Right,
It was a small ship. Well, it was smaller than a regular ship.
yeah, right.
Do you remember what it did? What you did with this ship?
What we do with it?
Yeah. And what its purpose was?
We're waiting for the induction of an age and of another person. And we practice at bringing them in.
Yeah, you practiced bringing the ships in, but they carried the tanks, trucks,
Yeah,
the heavy equipment were built with a ramp in the front so that you could bring them up to shore,
right.
drop the ramp, offload your cargo. And you were there almost about 9 months, I think, until May of 1943.
That's right.
Then you went to New York City. You joined a convoy, a large convoy. Well, actually, your LCT was put on a LST,
Yeah, right.
right, which is a larger ship
Yeah,
for your trip overseas.
right.
Do you remember where you landed? When you first landed when you got overseas?
Over to New York.
Yeah, when you left New York, you went to Arzu
Oh,
in Algeria,
yeah.
North Africa.
Yeah,
And that's where you trained with a lot of Army troops, training, landing, and everything else like that.
yeah,
And then you went up to Lake Bizerti, Tanzania.
yeah.
Remember that?
Right, yeah, sure.
And then in July of 1943, do you remember what you did then? You were getting ready for an invasion. Do you remember where?
Yeah. Yeah, I know it really, but I can't
Yeah.
think
It
of
was Sicily.
Sicily, right.
And you were part of an invasion fleet, you mentioned, of over 3,000 ships, which was quite a fleet.
Right.
Now, do you remember the weather?
The weather?
The weather. When you left South Africa to get ready for the invasion, do you remember the weather when you were in the convoy? You mentioned something about the bad seas, the high waves and the low waves, and how everybody got sick,
Yeah, yeah.
except for you and a couple of others.
Right.
And then when you went in when the invasion started, do you remember where your LCT was?
Where it was?
Yeah, I mean, you were in between the ships and the land. Now, what was happening at the time? Do you remember? You mentioned the red balls of fire.
Oh, yeah. Red balls are flying over one way, and then we were flying the other way, and we were in between. They were going, the engines, but motors were going back and forth.
You were in the middle
Yeah.
of the ships,
Right.
firing in on the land batteries, and then firing back in the ships, and you
Right.
were in the middle.
And we were in the middle, yeah.
How would you feel? Were you scared?
Oh, damn. Sure was.
Yeah, I imagine anybody would be. And then you mentioned that you delivered tanks, trucks, and men to the shore, and you made many trips in and out, back and forth from the ships
Right.
to the shore.
Right.
And you spent about 10 days doing that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you were trained with a group of men, some of the Army men, from the, what outfit was it? Anyway, I forget the outfit, but a lot of them were killed. And you mentioned that you felt pretty bad about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in July, later part of July, do you remember where you went after Sicily?
Back to
Lake Bizerti, in Africa.
Right.
And then you went back there for some rest and relaxation, R&R.
Went to what?
Went back just to get some rest and relaxation.
Yeah.
Then you were also preparing for the invasion of southern France, if I'm not mistaken.
We was supposed to, but we never failed there. We went someplace else.
You went someplace else?
Yeah.
After the invasion of southern France, though, you were approached by some officers that you would be going back to the United States.
But it never happened.
Never happened?
No.
They kept you there for a while longer?
We went to a different ship.
Well, that's right, okay. See, you're doing better than I am. So November, after that though, now you come back to the United States in November of 1944. And you were assigned a new LSM. And you were going on a shakedown cruise to train on this new LSM. Do you remember that? When you came back to the States?
I know we started ahead of it. We never went there. We went to the middle cruise. It was not. We didn't go there that you mentioned. Went back over to ships were trying.
You went back to Guam later after you left Texas. After you were trained, you were on a convoy again, and you had a shakedown cruise in the Gulf of Mexico. I think that's how you were told me before. And then you went through the Panama Canal up to San Diego. And from there, do you remember being in San Diego and then going to Hawaii?
No.
Well, this is what your journal said.
Oh yeah.
Which was yeah.
Yeah. No, we went.
You went to Hawaii, and then you went to Guam, and then on to Saipan. And then you went to Okinawa. So you were on a ship for quite a while.
Well, we went first. We went to first. We went to the first sea.
That was the invasion of Sicily.
After Sicily, we went to another place.
Southern France. You went.
Southern France.
Right.
And then we went to a different country. We went into the. There's a whole bunch of people in there that are involved in that.
You're right, Roger. I was I got ahead of myself a little bit. After the invasion of France, you went to Calcutta. You spent quite a bit of time in Calcutta, and you got to see a lot of the sights of Calcutta
All right.
in the area. And you were there probably what, 4 months, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, right.
And then from there, well, before we get going, you got to see, you went to movies. It was basically a lot of rest and relaxation, if I'm not mistaken, right? You
What
spent
was that?
a lot of rest and relaxation when you were on Calcutta.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you did a lot of sightseeing.
Yeah, right.
And if I'm not mistaken, if I can remember right, you had a menu from a restaurant that you had in one of your journals, which I thought was very interesting that you kept all that.
Yeah.
All right, now that's when you were told that you'd be coming back to New York. You were being told to come back to the United States. Your time was up. After Calcutta and after all that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And that's when you went back to Texas. You got a new ship. And you did the training. Do you recall all of that?
Yeah.
And then you were going back to overseas. You went through the Panama Canal. You did some training with the ship. And then you went to San Diego, where I guess you were getting ready to go back overseas again.
Yeah.
And then you went to Hawaii,
Yeah.
to Saipan, no, Guam, Saipan, and then to Okinawa.
Right.
And that's where you were preparing for the invasion of Japan. I think it was August of 1945.
Yes.
August 6th of 1945 is when the bombs were dropped.
Right.
You remember when the bombs were dropped and how you felt?
Yes.
I think you mentioned that you were relieved that the war
Yeah.
hopefully was going to be over.
Right.
When you left, do you remember when you left Okinawa, you went to Saipan? Do you remember that? And that's where you met a buddy from Belrose?
In fact, I met two of them.
Right. You
Yeah.
met two.
Yeah.
First you met Bud Rainey from Belrose.
Right.
And then you found out there was another buddy who was, and I'm trying to think of the island. Oh, he was on the island of Tinian.
Yeah.
Tinian Island.
All right.
Do you remember what you did?
What I did,
Yeah.
I got a boat ride, a ship ride, a motor, and went next door and got a boat with them and went for a ride with them and spent a day with them.
Yeah, you went and visited him. And you had your picture taken. Do you remember that picture?
Picture of both of us.
Yeah, the two of you.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you were standing in front of what?
The Navy, the Army.
Well, it was the Air Force plane.
Yeah,
The Enola Gay. Well, it actually was the Army plane at the time.
yeah,
The Enola Gay.
yeah.
A
Right.
picture of you, and we will show that after. I think we have a picture of that, and we will show the people
Yeah,
that you and your buddy had your picture taken in front of that,
right.
which had to be quite exciting if you.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got a lot of records there.
After that, when you got back to Saipan, this is when you were told you were going back to the United States. Do you recall all that?
Oh yeah.
Do you remember where you were discharged from?
Yes, I can
Ac-
picture it, but I can't tell you. He was pretty sharp to where we lived home. Yeah.
Actually, when you did come back from the United States, you landed in Washington, if I'm not mistaken. You told me that, and you took a train back to New York City.
Yeah,
And that's where you were discharged from Lido Beach, if I'm not
that's
mistaken.
the one. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How did you feel that day? Do you recall how you felt?
Very, very happy, but wonder about what job now. Am I
Yeah,
going to
you were
work?
worried about a job.
Yeah.
Was it hard to adjust back to civilian life after being in the military for 3 years, almost 3 years?
Yeah, yeah. We're always looking for a buddy. Want to be one. What I got? I got.
Do you remember what you did when you first got out of the service and you didn't have a job yet? Do you remember how you lived?
How we lived?
Yeah. There was the government had a little program.
Yeah, for I think it was 1 year.
Right. There you go. It was the 5220 Club.
Right.
Now, when after that you finally got a job, do you remember where you worked? Who you worked for?
I worked for several places.
But I think you worked for several places, but you became a full employee or a lifetime employee of the New York Telephone Company.
New York Telephone.
Well, one thing I want to ask you: did you take advantage of the GI Bill?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Did you marry and have a family?
Yes.
You had 2 daughters and a son?
Yep.
Now, did you keep in touch with your buddies or attend reunions?
All of them.
Kept in touch with them, and you attended a few reunions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Did you join any veterans organizations?
Yeah.
Like you said, the VFW.
Right.
Now, do you remember in 1950, you were in the reserves, right? You were in the Navy reserves?
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember being called back to the military?
Yes.
For what war? Do you remember?
What war?
Yeah, you were called up for the Korean War. You were activated again.
Yes.
And you spent, you really didn't like it.
I had to leave to the family and
You had to leave the family, yeah. But you did get a deferment after a while, if I'm not mistaken.
About a year. Yeah.
It took you about a year.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you did for that year while you were in the service?
I started to work.
We were working on a ship, but
Oh, it was the first slip. Yeah, the
the
first
ship.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, you were working on that ship.
Worked for
getting it
one
prepared,
year. Yeah.
Working on it, getting it ready for the Korean War.
Yeah.
Now, your rank, do you remember your rank? You were electrician's mate,
First class.
first class.
Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to make sure we got that in. Now, before we close this, one other question. Do you feel that your service experience had a positive or negative effect on your life?
Positive.
Positive? Do you think we can get this picture? Can we get that picture of the Enola Gay? Let's see if we can get this picture. I want to see these people. There it is. Can you see the picture, Roger? Take a look.
Where?
It's right up there on the screen.
Oh, yes. That's me.
That was your buddy from your hometown.
Yep.
Oh,
We got a days off. We got time off for one, and I got a plane to fly over there to him, and then to see him, and then to fly back again. We issued Navy from one place to another, getting help, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a long ride there. But that's where the ship was leaded. That was the message there. That's where the Enola Gay started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Roger, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your military service
Thank you.
and your time telling your story, letting us hear everything.
Thank
You very much.
Thank you very much. I wish I could help more.
You did a great job. Thank you.